Well, let me give a quick spin on a complicated read. Complicated because it's written at a level you probably see in graduate school and not so much when you're taking a class before um, college English, but it's a little bit advanced, but I'm sure you can do it. I'm trying to open it up for you a little bit. We're not going to read all 35 pages, so I'm going to kind of go to where I've highlighted things, and then they'll be highlighted in the copy you see as well. I think this will really give you a great idea of Gaetan Dugas. Let me cruise back a little. Johns Hopkins University, very creditable source, excellent stuff. You don't publish in this press unless you've passed the scrutiny of a flank of really, capable, intelligent editors who look over every single word. So this is a publication that's passed muster. It's all about Gaetan Dugas. It's about the monster Schultz created and how he created him. It's really quite good. We're just going to go about, for about 10 or 15 pages, but you can see from the summary, the article contextualizes the production of Reception and the band played on Schultz's popular history of the American AIDS epidemic, and it gives you the background of patient zero. This is the way Gaetan looked, 1981 or so, it looks like, when he had to shave his hair following chemotherapy. And we're going to go ahead up to page about 170 or so. This is the section I want you to read. Randy Schultz, his research, his fascination here with Gaetan Dugas, what Bill Darrow has to say about Gaetan Dugas. You want to read that, especially this quotation here. This is a cluster study on page 148. Gaetan Dugas is zero, the index patient, and the zero means out of the area, and also most of these names came out of Gaetan Dugas's phone book, people he'd met in the past year or two. And as you know now, if these people are getting AIDS in 1981 and 2, they've been infected years before they met Gaetan Dugas. And so Schultz makes it believe that Gaetan caused all these people to be sick, when in fact it's more certain that Gaetan was infected, as were all of them, long before they met each other. And that's where Schultz gets it wrong powerfully. Bill Darrow, again, page 148 in Schultz's book, Cluster Study. Got to read this. And here, this is kind of what I talked about on page 553 in the book in the last video, is that he's contradicting himself. Early on, they were mistaken about the time it took between infection and illness, but by the time Schultz wrote, it was all very clear that it took years, not months. And then here's how he got to know Gaetan Dugas. Fascinating stuff. Had to do with meeting Paul Popham in 1986. And so Gaetan Dugas is a late ad. The book is almost done. He writes him in backwards to the book, not part of the story. Kind of an ad just before he published. And he meets Paul Popham. You've got to read that. This is really fascinating. You know Paul Popham now, 1981 and 2, because he's part of the gay men's health crisis. Here he is in 1986, dying from AIDS. You got to see this. This is kind of an exciting thing, and kind of an explanation of what he did, how he created the character of Gaetan Dugas. And then later on, you have a little bit about how Schultz turned Gaetan Dugas into a villain, how he had a character before Gaetan called the epidemic, and he just made Gaetan the villain. And then finally we get how he gets more information about Gaetan. Friends in Vancouver, 1986, at an AIDS forum, they share information about Gaetan. Schultz promises not to use his name. Obviously he lied. And then you get some background into Gaetan Dugas as well. And this is really kind of a cool section that lets you know that while Dritz and Conant told Gaetan, stop having sex, what you're doing and is killing people in 1982, you realize that he had every reason not to believe them. Well worth reading that. And then as we move ahead, you get kind of a much more humane portrait of Gaetan. Schiltz had all these notes. These notes come out of Schiltz archives, San Francisco Library. So all of these notes are available. Schiltz knew all of these very sympathetic things about Gaetan Dugas, and he didn't put any of them in the book. They talk about how the Canadian friends of Gaetan were horrified about what Schiltz did, how he created the monster, and you get yet another example of a much more sympathetic Gaetan. So I'm going to ask you to read basically, it's page 183, 170 to 183 in this one here. And that'll give you some real critical understanding of Gaetan Dugas that's missing from Schiltz's book.